Hey there folks, I'm Mark in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and this, it's Billboard Breakdown. I don't remember. So I'll admit, I didn't quite predict this one. I knew that Tyler the Creator would have his album bomb, and with just enough songs to squeak onto my qualifying rules for the record, but I'll admit I did not expect DJ Khaled to do as well as he did. Now, part of this is the suspicion that DJ Khaled didn't have the blowout single ready to hit beyond a song like No Brainer, which was released last year, packaged on this album, and didn't re-enter the Hot 100, but he did see enough measurable chart success that I gotta pay attention. Even if I have less than zero interest in reviewing the album, it'll probably wind up on the trailing edge at best. Now, of course, none of this means much to our current top 10, where at our number 1, Old Town Road by Lil Nas X featuring Billy Ray Cyrus continues to cement its hold in the Hot 100 thanks to the video, holding its own on sales, and radio that, despite wavering, actually picked up momentum. And while I'd like to say that I Don't Care by Ed Sheeran and Justin Bieber can make a run beyond number 2, it's lagging on sales and streaming, and while it's making one hell of a radio run, it's getting outstripped on YouTube by a frankly ridiculous margin, and I'm not seeing enough momentum to really break it through. What's more interesting is Bad Guy by Billie Eilish picking up a slot to number 3 with the streaming that will not die, and while sales are down, the radio run is actually holding its own. It might actually sustain some position with more organic presence than I was expecting. Hell, compare it to Sucker by the Jonas Brothers down at number 4, which might have just barely secured the top spot on the radio, but the sales are actually weaker and the streaming is way worse. Not sure if it's on its way out yet, but the position is really quite precarious. And what could easily challenge them is Talk by Khaled rising up to number 5. Yeah, the sales might be weaker, but the streaming is more robust and airplay seems to have a little more momentum. Even if the song is worse, I can see it holding its own. But it did elbow past Wow by Post Malone down at number 6. I mean, it's better streaming, but worse sales and radio stumbling. And Sunflower by Post Malone and Sway Lee down to number 7. Even better streaming, but even worse pretty much everywhere else. Then we saw a stumble for Dancing with a Stranger by Sam Smith and Normani down at number 8. Kinda to be expected with the radio finally starting to slip with everything else in the can. But I'll admit I'm still kinda surprised that Me by Taylor Swift featuring Brendan Urie slid down to number 9. Not just because the sales and the streaming are unstable, but because radio may have already peaked. And look, I'm not saying that the song is tanked altogether, but when I am already seeing some headlines where it implies the song is underperforming, that's probably not news that Taylor Swift is used to hearing, especially getting blocked by Old Town Road of all things. Finally, entering the top 10 for the first time off of a radio push that seems to have come right the hell out of nowhere, and it's pretty much got nothing else. Sweet But Psycho by Ava Max. Now, again, I don't really expect this to last long, especially given it's a long run on the radio charts, but it could hold in the top 10 for a little longer given all the songs falling above it. You never know unless the top 10 gets seriously disrupted. And while we're on that note, our losers and dropouts. And there are a fair few in the latter category. First, the songs that nabbed their year-end spot for 2019, like Be Alright by Dean Lewis, Drip Too Hard by Lil Baby and Gunna, Baby Shark by Pink Fong, and to my surprise, Thank You Next by Ariana Grande. And then the songs that'll likely miss it, like Make It Sweet by Old Dominion, and Mixed Personalities by YNW Melly and Kanye West. Good. Now, given that we also got 2 albums that dropped this week, we also had a lot of losers across the board here. Yeah, Shallow by Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper is finally slowing down at 36, although it'll comfortably make the year-end list. And then we got the continued losers like Homicide by Logic featuring Eminem at 53, Boy With Love by BTS and Halsey at 71, and Night Shift by John Party to 90. But then you got the loss for the debut of Triggered by Jhené Aiko at 94. Kind of makes sense, it's not really much of a single. And I will say I'm a little bit surprised that Beer Never Broke My Heart by Luke Combs actually suffered a setback to 41. And Love Ain't by the Eli Young Band managed to falter at 66. And from there, look, it's honestly all over the place, more due to the album bombs than anything else. Here With Me by Marshmello featuring Churches sliding down to 48, Who Do You Love by the Chainsmokers featuring 5 Seconds of Summer at 73, Don't Call Me Up by Mabel at 79, Girls Need Love by Summer Walker and Drake at 82, Talk You Out of It by Florida Georgia Line at 89, Go Loco by YG, Tyga, and John Z at 92. Okay, why are most of these songs okay at best and all look like they probably should have done better on the Hot 100 and show some real signs of weakness? I mean, YG might recover if his streaming numbers are better, but I'd honestly just prefer that Go Loco fail and fail hard. Beyond that, expected losses in reggaeton for Calma by Pedro Capo and Farruko to 96, and Bela 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 by Ozuna, Daddy Yankee, J Balvin, Farruko, and Annual AA at 99, and then there's the slump for Here Tonight by Brett Young at 98. And given that it's hit its last week, its 20th week on the Hot 100, probably gone next week anyway. And yet what might be more interesting here is that thanks to 2 album bombs, no gains this week. No re-entries either. But since album bomb rules are in effect for Tyler the Creator, I will list the songs that debuted this week that I already discussed in some detail in my review on Spectrum Pulse. I Think is at 51, Running Out of Time is at 65, Igor's Themes at 67, New Magic Wands at 68, What's Good is at 85, and Puppet is at 88. But now on to our new arrivals. Let's start off with number 91, Weather the Storm by DJ Khaled featuring Meek Mill and Lil Baby.
Fresh out the trenches, I weather the storm.
So unfortunately, DJ Khaled didn't quite get enough songs to qualify for the album bomb, but I'd also make the argument that that term isn't quite appropriate when it comes to talking about DJ Khaled anyway, because he doesn't so much make albums as curated singles and posse-cut compilations, which is also why individual songs charted higher than Tyler on aggregate, but just less of them. Anyway, we got a team up between Meek Mill and Lil Baby. And you know what? For the first half of the song, it kind of works. Meek Mill gets his operatic backdrop for him to holler over, and while I've still never been quite impressed with his vocal tone to carry real power, his flows are better, and his long fight to get here adds some desperation that I do appreciate. And then Lil Baby comes on to short circuit all that momentum. The rhymes are getting dropped, the beat mutates into a gurgle, and can't even stay with it, and Lil Baby can't remotely match the energy with a very Lil Wayne-esque melody that doesn't fit anything else here. Possibly because Lil Baby might not have ever been in Meek Mill's shoes. The only people that he references in similar dire straits are family and friends, not himself, but again, it doesn't help the song at all. Maybe you just need a third verse from Meek at the end to ramp things up, but yeah, it's not bad. This should be better though. Number 86, What If I Never Get Over You by Lady Antebellum.
What if I never get over you?
So here's the problem with me and Lady Antebellum. If they choose to make a mid-tempo, downbeat heartbreak song, they're inevitably stuck with the comparison to Need You Now, and specifically for me, some of the tunes that Charles Kelly put out solo. Now, granted, the group can have some pretty good instincts in picking songs, and look, I'm not gonna say that this song is better than any of the previous stuff, but it is still really good. Yeah, the synth accents don't need to be there, and I'd be a fan of the guitars getting a little bit more texture, and the mix overall feels a little oversold, especially on the bridge. It could have had a moment to slow things down a bit. But Lady Antebellum have always been more of an adult contemporary act than many want to admit, so none of it's all that surprising. And again, I do like the song regardless. It's got the same formula as Marianas Trench's One Love in questioning whether or not you'll ever truly get over someone post-breakup. And while the obvious answer is, of course, it just takes time, it is a solid underlying idea for this sort of song, and the writing gives it a little bit of weight, if feeling a little bit abstract at points. So yeah, for a Lady Antebellum lead-off single, I really like this. Hope it sticks around. Number 74, A Boy Is a Gun by Tyler the Creator.
You got me by my neck. That's why these other niggas lame to us.
You know, my rule is that if a song can make my best or worst of a week, I will cover it here, even if it's from an album bomb, and this is easily one of Tyler's best songs from Igor, hands down. It's a turning point of the album, where the breakup has to happen and continues the extended metaphor of boys being both magic wands and guns. It's phallic as all hell, playing off the Ponderosa Twins sample off coursing waves of synth, but in highlighting how said partners can bring both love and pain, where the compliments will come as much as the insults, assaults, where they can be dangerous but also keep him safe. But then the moment hits where he has to tell him to stay the fuck away, as he has to end it, and the guitar and the cascading pianos just break through. It's a really powerful moment. It's easily one of the two major highlights on Igor, and considering the other one didn't chart, yeah, you know what? Great song. Number 57, Jealous by DJ Khaled featuring Chris Brown, Lil Wayne, and Big Sean. Okay, I'll be blunt. When I saw this lineup for a song with that title, I was bracing myself for the worst. And look, it's an ugly hook with Chris Brown's auto-tune stab at hip-hop against the fat synth line and trap snares. It's not setting itself up well, but at least the guys are setting it up so he and their partners are inspiring jealousy, not being all that jealous themselves. And on top of that, Lil Wayne's verse is actually really well structured and pretty strong. And I'm not against DJ Khaled just shouting "fuck him" across the song, which leaves Big Sean. And maybe it's just me, but it's really hard not to see some of the veiled references as angling towards Janae on an otherwise good verse. But if he's looking for that smoke beyond triggered, he could be in a lot more trouble than he realizes. Otherwise, look, it's nowhere close to as bad as I was expecting. It's not good with that repetitive hook and entirely too much Chris Brown, but you know what? I've heard worse. It's fine. Number 52, Celebrate by DJ Khaled featuring Travis Scott and Post Malone. So am I the only one who saw this collaboration and thought it was a little strange? I mean, Travis Scott and Post Malone kind of make sense together. They've got that auto-tuned grit and will pull from a similar weed-saturated murk. But how on earth would DJ Khaled's gaudy opulence fit in with that? Well, mostly not well, and this is an issue with the production. The trap snares and the auto-tune layering around Travis Scott's voice sounds way cleaner than it probably should, especially with that flute and the blocky beat that's trying to cut through. And even with the guitars trying to add some smolder on the bridge, none of it really merges all that together for an effective hook. You got all the component pieces, but none of them mesh. Maybe if Post Malone and Travis Scott actually had some real interplay or harmonies, it might add up to more. But for a song called Celebrate, it's awfully curdled. Both those trying to highlight those who were lost and can't celebrate with them, and also how you're not them celebrating in the same way. And yet from the sounds of the song, I'm not sure I'd want to be. Yeah, this has been highlighted as a dud across the project by not just me. It absolutely is. Not a good song. Next. Number 44, You Stay by DJ Khaled featuring Meek Mill, J Balvin, Lil Baby, and Jeremih. Okay, another team-up between Meek Mill and Lil Baby, this time with J Balvin and Jeremih thrown into the mix, and I'm honestly not sure that's a net positive. Firstly, the song starts with a pretty significant R&B sample from No Me Convien by India, but only uses the vocal line and none of the texture against a bare-bone pulsating synth with some faint twinkling keys around it until a lumpy percussion groove tries to capture something. And pile in Jeremih's multi-tracking and I'm left feeling that the mix is stuffed with too many elements that don't complement each other, or that they feel natural. Especially with Meek Mill and Lil Baby playing the other man trying to coax a distraught girl over to either cheat with them or hook up after dumping the ex. And look, Meek Mill's got nothing close to groove in his delivery to make this work. He's not sensual by any means, so he just comes across as stilted and threatening. Both Jeremih and Lil Baby are otherwise underwhelming, and J Balvin's just giving the outro. That's it. So yeah, it's not worse than Celebrate, but it's absolutely a mess. And it's also not good. Number 43, Just Us by DJ Khaled featuring SZA. Ain't nobody gonna take a shot at South Wales, never them. Oh look, the rare DJ Khaled song that's only got a single guest star. And again, given how organic SZA's material tends to be, I was curious how well she'd fit against DJ Khaled's mix. And the answer is, I don't care. He just sampled Miss Jackson by Outkast, and that's the sort of classic that you should know way better than to ever touch, especially when you blast away all the stormy texture and grit that made that instrumental so striking. Hell, SZA might actually sounded better against the original than this sterile recreation, but even the writing's awkward here. Forget Miss Jackson's intricacy that was built on a plainly fractured relationship and messy family dynamic, or how SZA is now stuck trying to sell a pretty generic us against the world message. What it feels more reminiscent of are songs like All the Stars that play for a broad generic platitudes from SZA instead of the very specific complexities that she built into Control. So yeah, the crime here isn't that this is bad per se, it's just that it utterly squanders a real talent in R&B against a classic song that should never have been touched for an utterly banal banal remake. In other words, it's the feel this moment of 2019. In other words, not good, skip it. Number 21, Higher by DJ Khaled featuring Nipsey Hussle and John Legend. Don't you know that the devil is a liar? I can make the argument that this was the song that prompted the release of the entire Father of Assad project. The big name recognition with Nipsey Hussle both before and after his passing, and with the video, that's a recognizable draw. And also helps that DJ Khaled picked a beat with a real gospel opulence and had John Legend sell it with a lot of soul in the hook, which gives Nipsey Hussle the space to speak briefly about his birth and family, and then as the trap elements come into the second verse, a lot of his work to make his violent straight legit, left all the more cryptic with the final line, and look at my fate. Honestly, there's little to criticize here. It's well constructed. I mean, I'm not crazy about Nipsey Hussle's flow, and you'd think with a song with this much dramatic swell, you get a bridge or at least a third verse. But what we get, it is something that's somewhat special. So yeah, great song. Genuinely like it. Number 19, Wish Wish by DJ Khaled featuring Cardi B and 21 Savage. Put a ribbon on my box 'cause it's pussy gifted. See, now this makes sense as a team up. Even if I, like everyone else, is lukewarm on Barche Cardi, a reunion might be the sort of cut to give Cardi B some of the street fire and intensity that she's been missing the past 6 months, especially off that eerie keyboard-driven Tay Keith beat. And yet, I don't know, I feel like I should like this a lot more than I do. Yeah, Cardi gets off on some decent bars, but I can't be the only one who finds the rhyming phrases with themselves to get a little bit tired from her, and I'm left thinking that she could have gone harder. And as for 21 Savage, well, putting aside how the fidelity doesn't quite match with Cardi's, he clearly recorded his verse elsewhere. He also tries for a wordier flow that only seems to highlight his clumsiness and not quite riding the beat as well as he could, which is probably a bad idea when he mentions on his second bar that he thinks he's the best thing coming out of the South. Even when a few bars later, he's talking about shooting rappers and putting aside any of the wordplay because he's that real. Yeah, that's telling, but probably not in the way it should be, which again kind of leaves me mixed on the song. Don't get me wrong, it's not bad. It's certainly better than some of the other songs we got from DJ Khaled, but again, it definitely should be a fair bit better. Number 15, Nightmare by Halsey. So I've been waiting to hear how the hell Halsey would follow Without Me, a song that, again, I only found tolerable when Juice WRLD was on it. Take that as what you will. Now, to see her bring out a song called Nightmare, which is implying a darker pivot, possibly to compete and lose in a similar lane to Billie Eilish, I was intrigued. And I bring up Billie Eilish because it seems kind of obvious to me that she's taken the same slightly hushed, minimal approach and spare pitch shifting for at least the first verse and the pre-choruses and the bridge, at least until she starts squawking over some of the ugliest distortion I've heard in a long time on that hook. And it's not ugly in a good way. It's flat, it's grinding, there's no palpable sense of menace or bass or restraint. It's not like it's forcing an irritation that's the furthest thing from natural. Now, some people will likely point to Rated R era Rihanna and say that's probably a better parallel. And you know what, fair enough. And now it's an indictment on Halsey's whole career in chasing sounds that other acts will do better. Because again, it is. But I will say the writing at least feels a bit more detailed, and the idea of owning your negative impulses, especially as much as she puts into her music, that makes sense. But then she chases it all with a post-chorus line, I'm no sweet dream, but I'm a hell of a night, which is a really good turn of phrase and might work if you're making a dark, sensual song. But here it comes across as a sort of enticing plea to reinforce her value from guys and girls that she herself shouldn't need by the state of the rest of the song. And hold on, how are you keeping your exes in the basement when in the last single you said specifically on the hook how you put him above you? If anything, this song highlights my biggest problem with Halsey's music. For years now, overthought detail that only detracts from the pathos that she tries to sell at the core and in her delivery. Only this time she brought along one of the worst hooks of her career. So yeah, it's pretty bad. Next. And finally, number 13, EARFQUAKE by Tyler, the Creator. Riding around, you love me shaking me up and it's making my heart break. So it looks like we got Tyler's biggest solo hit by a considerable margin. Well, solo because it didn't credit Playboi Carti or Charlie Wilson, but it does feel more like a Tyler creation exclusively. And you know what? It actually is pretty good, but there are some significant problems. Tyler's weedy upper register, even if supported by pitch shifting, it doesn't sound anything close to being that good. Trying to split the difference between Brockhampton and Awaken My Love era Childish Gambino, and I've never had any fondness for Playboi Carti's weird, chewy delivery and utter absence of content. But aside from that, Charlie Wilson does give the song some soul to work opposite the beeping synths and the detailed piano cascades, and I am a bit of a sucker for those G-funk touches both in the tonal choice and the lumpy groove, which kind of works for the sort of awkward, pleading, meshed with flimsy ego that's the core of this song's emotions. So yeah, it's good, it's fine enough, but if I'm also being honest, I'm not sure I'm seeing the crossover appeal here that'll give this traction outside of early sales and maybe streaming. I know Tyler's got his diehard fans who will keep this around for longer than the crossovers from Flower Boy, at least I expect so, but I would put money on this lasting even less than some of the DJ Khaled cuts. I'm sorry. And you know what? It's not even the Tyler the Creator song I would highlight as my favorite this week, because that's going to Boy Is a Gun as the best of the week, with Higher by DJ Khaled, Nipsey Hussle, and John Legend just edging out Lady Antebellum here as the honorable mention. Now for the worst of the week, I've got a three-way race between utterly missed potential, a horrible idea that should have never seen the light of day but ultimately leaves them more blandly forgettable than bad, and one of the worst hooks on a pop song I've heard this year. So on that note, Nightmare by Halsey is the worst of the week, with dishonorable mention going to Celebrate by DJ Khaled featuring Post Malone and Travis Scott. Because I remembered that again, Post Malone brought in more of that stupid yodeling thing he does, and still it somehow is not winding up the worst part of that song. Again, so much wasted potential there. Anyway, next week's the fallout from all this, and the unlikely possibility of a YG album bomb, so stay tuned for that. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse.